Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Carrie Harris.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Nice, ice-cold Pepsi Cola tonight. Some people like it when I do that. Some people don't, but I like it. That's why I do it. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Jam-packed show tonight, Rodney. We're going to break down the Florida Atlantic game, look ahead to the Ole Miss game. The Crimson Tide softball team gets their national championship rings, and we'll have our predictions on the Tide and the Rebels coming up later on. But we're going to start with this past Saturday afternoon. Alabama, as expected, Rodney, rolled over Florida Atlantic 40-7, 30-0 at halftime. I guess the most noteworthy part of this game was late in the fourth quarter with Alabama playing true freshmen and guys who had not played a lot of football. Florida Atlantic scored a touchdown in the final 3 minutes, helped out by an unsportsmanlike penalty against the Alabama sideline, the coaches for being on the field, but that broke a scoreless streak going back to the Michigan game and ruined Alabama's opportunity to become the first team since 1995 to have back-to-back-to-back shutouts.
Yeah, you know, the defense has been incredible, Gary. What have they gone 100? They went 134 straight points without giving up anything. So obviously the defense has done its job in terms of keeping people out of the end zone. And Cade Foster, once again, there you see him. He had another big day, Gary, what, a 52-yard field goal. So now he has 2 kicks over 50 yards already this season. He also had a 46-yard field goal. You
know, you see Kenyon Drake there scoring his 3rd touchdown in limited duty. And we saw it again on display, and this is that touchdown that Florida Atlantic got, Tanae Patrick getting beat late by the tight end for the Owls. But the balance on this team, the depth has been in full display these first 4 games. Rodney, let me give you some numbers. Alabama's had 10 players carry the football. They've had 15 players catch passes, 16 defensive players record tackles for loss, and 10 players with at least a share of a sack. The Tide has played 10 true freshmen and 11 redshirt freshmen. Not only does this bode well for this year, but the future as well. It really is a deep, balanced, talented football team.
What does it remind you of? I mean, the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
When Alabama routinely played.
And so do the scores that they're laying on
65,
people.
70 players a game, and they had, 7, 8 ball carriers every game. And again, they ran the wishbone a little bit different, obviously, but at the same time, to see so many guys, contributing not only in the rushing game, but just overall, both sides of the football, both sides of the line of scrimmage. You're seeing a lot of reps with the second-team offensive line. And again, I don't think since Nick Saban's been here that the second-team offensive line has gotten this much work.
I was on a radio station today in Mississippi for a show, and the hosts were saying, well, Alabama has put up some good numbers, but they're not numbers like Texas has been and some other teams have been put up. I said, well, they played a half of football. Every one of their games have been decided at halftime, all 4 of them.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned it, Gary. Texas isn't playing as many players as Alabama has. They've ran up some scores a couple of times. I know against Ole Miss, for example, they rang up 66 points, and they really didn't play the kind of numbers in terms of what Alabama's done.
Let's take a look at the stat sheet against Florida Atlantic, Rodney, and it'll speak to the dominance of the Tide. You see 110 total yards. 75 of those yards for Florida Atlantic came on that last drive. So basically, they had generated no offense. Not that 110 is a lot, but hardly any offense for the game.
I think I may be mistaken here, Gary. Before that last drive, Florida Atlantic had 1 first down. Is that correct? That's unbelievable.
You see the rush yards and the pass yards almost split for Alabama. This is the only negative. First time this year, Alabama did not win the turnover battle. They only had 1, but Florida Atlantic did not have any. And look at McCarron again, 3 touchdown passes, 10 this season, no interceptions, Rodney.
Yeah, he's been very efficient, Gary. We talked about it before the season started. I thought he was throwing the ball as well or better, probably better than I'd ever seen him throw it. And, obviously he's playing with a lot of confidence. He's managing things well. He has no interceptions. He has 10 touchdown passes. I mean, he's just been efficient. I think, 15 of 25 against Florida Atlantic, but he did have some passes dropped. And you even noted that there's times that when he doesn't complete passes, I mean, it's within a whisker.
Yeah, he's been right on target. Well, it wasn't perfect. Alabama, as we thought they would, did handle Florida Atlantic easily, winning 40-7. But going into the game, the Tide had scored touchdowns on 11 of 12 red zone possessions. While on Saturday, they settled for field goals on 2 occasions inside the red zone. Todd Hoyer has the story from Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Alabama scored 40 points and amassed 503 yards of total offense against the Owls Saturday afternoon here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And that's pretty good, right? But Nick Saban quickly pointed out in his post-game comments that he wasn't pleased at the way his team did not finish drives, especially when it came to the red zone.
In those kind of situations, we're happy to get the points, and we're pleased that the field goal kickers are delivering for us, but at the same time, we'd like to finish some of those drives with a little better execution. I think up until today, we had good red zone execution, but, today, when we got the ball inside of 35, we didn't always take advantage of that. I think that's something that we need to continue to work on.
Like I said, everything's not going to be perfect. It's just the way it goes. Sometimes, some games, you're going to finish drives, and some you're not. But that's why we have a good kicking team backing us up, and they did a good job of putting points on the board when we didn't.
I mean, we just have to execute better. I mean, there was a few plays, where the defense just got us, but we basically just have to go and watch film, see what they did, and then see what we have to do in order to stop that from happening next week.
So with the win over the Florida Atlantic Owls, Alabama moves to 4-0 on the season. Next up, they're back in SEC play when the Ole Miss Rebels come to T-Town for a Saturday night event right here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Reporting in Tuscaloosa, Todd Hoyer, WVUA Sports.
Thank you, Todd. Well, still to come tonight on Tider Insider TV. You said it. Top-ranked Alabama will welcome in Ole Miss as the Tide will play its first SEC home game of the season on Saturday night against the Rebels. We'll break it down for you. Also, Tider Insider TV will be getting your phone calls and answering your email questions just a little bit later on in the program. But go ahead and jot down the telephone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, titv@WVUA-TV.com. Stick around. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Rodney will rejoin me in a moment. Alabama will finally play an SEC home game this coming Saturday night when Ole Miss comes to town for an 8:15 kickoff on ESPN. Now, the Rebels are 3-1, but the only good team they played, Texas, hung 66 on them. But Ole Miss did manage to score 31 in that game. In fact, they are averaging nearly 37 points per game on offense this season.
Ole Miss is really, a much improved, team. I think the offensive numbers that they've been able to put up against everyone that they've played have been very, very impressive. Their no-huddle style, a little bit about like what Auburn used to be when Gus Malzahn was there, just to give, our folks something to sort of relate it to. They're playing hard. They're playing with a lot of spirit. They've got some really good skilled players. Bo Wallace has done a good job for them at quarterback. Barry Brunetti comes in sometimes, two-quarterback system, no huddle fast. Really run the ball effectively with all the zone read options, quarterback runs. Have some good skill guys that can make plays in the passing game.
As I stated, Ole Miss's defense gave up 66 to Texas, but they did bounce back with a shutout against Tulane this past Saturday in New Orleans. Now, the Rebels are a little bit undersized on the defensive side of the football, but Coach Saban says they really get after you and play aggressively.
Their defense is very quick and athletic, move around a lot, and, create problems sometimes in their ability to run and affect the edges in the passing game. So forced a bunch of turnovers last week. So this is a team that's a completely different team. I think Hugh Freeze has done a really, really good job, and obviously going to be important for us getting back into SEC play, and should be a great atmosphere for us in Bryant-Denny Stadium Saturday night.
Going to be a long day leading up to the game on Saturday night, that's for sure. 8:15 kickoff at Bryant-Denny Stadium. ESPN will televise. All right, Rodney, let's talk about the Rebels. Ole Miss is 3-1 on the season. As we mentioned, they lost to Texas big, 66-31 in Oxford. They defeated Central Arkansas 49-27, UTEP 28-10 in Oxford, and they beat Tulane on the road last weekend 39-0. Top players for the Rebels on offense, their two quarterbacks, Bo Wallace and Barry Brunetti. Although Wallace is dinged up with a shoulder, he is expected to play.
Yeah, I talked to some people over in Mississippi, Gary, and they think he's, first of all, he leads them in terms of the number of attempts rushing. So he's taking some shots. He hurt his shoulder against Texas. He's not 100%. They think Brunetti will probably see quite a bit of action. They love to run that speed sweep with Jeff Scott. He's averaging about 8.6 a carry. They run some option, do some different things. Bo Wallace is a really good passer as well. He's hooked up with Dante Moncrief 3 or 4 times for touchdowns. I know 3 of those, Gary, have gone for over 50 yards.
Offensively as well, they got a little running back. Alabama saw him last year, Jeff Scott. He's not very big, but he's quick, and he's got a good average per carry, and he's a guy that if he gets out on the perimeter, he can take it the distance.
He's only about 5'7", 170, but, you know, he can move. And as I mentioned right now, Gary, he's their leading rusher. He's carried 31 times for about 269 yards, averaging about 8.6 a carry. So he's really explosive. You remember last year, Randall Mackey was a quarterback. He's been moved to running back. He sees some action back there as well at the tailback spot. And, you know, offensively, they've really, it's really kind of incredible how they've turned it around, because last year they were actually giving up more points than they were scoring. Now they're scoring 36 a game. And you mentioned the competition hasn't been great, but they still hung, you know, 31 on Texas, which isn't bad.
Yeah, defensively, giving up some points, but got some playmakers. Alabama's won 8 in a row in the series. The Tide's a 32-point favorite. On defense, undersized, as we mentioned, but the linebacker Mike Maury, linebacker Denzel Kimdichie, cornerback Charles Sawyer, some of their better players. Kimdichie, a familiar name. His brother, the highly touted recruit Robert Kimdichie. But Denzel's making a name for himself at Ole Miss.
Well, you mentioned it, Gary. They're not really big. They're kind of small across the front. Obviously, when you look at a guy that Barrett Jones, for example, is going to be going up against their freshman nose tackle, Isaac Gross, who is just 254 pounds.
Yeah, big
so
size.
They're not really big, but they are quick.
Yeah, and that quickness, though, can be negated with Alabama with that downhill running game. They can just run right at you and get you on your heels in a hurry. All right, that's our Ole Miss preview. Later on, Rodney and I will make our predictions on the game. Coming up on Titv, the UA softball team celebrates its national title and receives its championship rings. And don't forget to give us a call here to the show. You can reach us at 205-348-WVUA, or you can drop us an email at titv@WVUA-TV.com. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider TV. Let's give you an Alabama in the NFL update real quick. Julio Jones had 5 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown for the Falcons on Sunday as they moved to 3-0 on the season with a 27-3 victory over the Chargers in San Diego. Atlanta looking really good for the season. Julio having a solid year. Remember, they got a lot of other weapons too with Gonzalez and White, but he's had 15 catches for 189 yards and 3 touchdowns. Trent Richardson, meanwhile, only had 27 yards on just 12 carries Sunday as the Browns lost to the Bills 24-14 to drop to 0-3. But he did have this nice 5-yard touchdown run and caught 6 passes for 24 yards as the great Jim Brown looked on Sunday in Cleveland. Well, the Alabama softball team received its national championship rings in front of more than 100,000 fans at a ceremony held at the halftime of Alabama's game against Florida Atlantic on Saturday afternoon in Bryant-Denny Stadium. UA Director of Athletics Mal Moore presented each player, coach, and support staff member with the program's first national championship rings. Alabama won its first ever national championship by defeating Oklahoma in the Women's College World Series Finals this past spring in Oklahoma City. All right, Rodney, let's take some phone calls. They're lining up for us tonight. First up is our buddy John over there in Bessemer. John, what's up?
What's up, Gary?
Hey, man.
Hey, man, somebody told me Arkansas's coach was going to go to Auburn to be Auburn's coach. Is that really true or not?
No, Arkansas would probably swap him for just about anybody. What happened, John, was John L. Smith yesterday speaking at the Little Rock Touchdown Club. Misspoke a couple of times. He called it the State of Alabama program when he meant the State of Arkansas program. And he was asked a question about where he thought Bobby Petrino would end up. Would it be Kentucky or Auburn? And he said he thought it had a better chance that Petrino would wind up at Auburn. And obviously probably a question he shouldn't have answered, and they got to play in a couple of weeks. But I can assure you, John L. Smith will not be going to Auburn and probably will not be at Arkansas very much longer.
Well, and let's say, too, and fairly speaking for John L. Smith, he's had a lot of personal issues that are, you know, weighing incredibly on him, and, you know, you can understand some of the things maybe.
Well, you know how it is. When you're down, people don't let up, that's for sure. He's having a tough time there in Arkansas. Some of it his fault, some of it is not. Ultimately, that program's in disarray because of what Bobby Petrino did off the field, and they're trying to bounce back from that. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk with our buddy CB. CB, what's going on? Or LD, actually going to center to talk to LD. LD, what's up?
Not much. I was wondering what it would take to get A.J. McCarron considered more for the Heisman with his numbers that he's putting up.
LD, fair question. If he keeps winning games and putting up solid numbers, he's going to get in the conversation. But the key has been what I just said, solid numbers. They're not off the charts numbers. He has been pulled out of some games. When Alabama gets into some more high-profile games in the SEC, And if he continues to throw these touchdown passes without interceptions, I think you'll see his name in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, again, he just has to continue performing at the level he is now, and if he does, certainly I think he'll get in the mix. Alabama continues to win. And right now, if you look at the Heisman race, and I think it's too early to really start talking about. Geno Smith's a guy that's been talked about a lot, the West Virginia quarterback. Of course, Matt Barkley, and he's had some struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I think as the season goes along, maybe 2 or 3 more weeks, we'll get a more clearer indication of who some of the top guys are.
I can tell you this, LD, A.J. McCarron wants to win football games. That's what he wants his legacy to be all about, a couple of national championships, if not 3. But if he gets in Heisman consideration, even better. All right, let's take an email. This is from Melissa in Gordo. Do you think DJ Fluker will go to the NFL? Rodney, DJ Fluker, the talented redshirt junior right tackle for the Crimson Tide. What are you hearing?
Well, Gary, I thought he might go last year, and I think it was maybe a close decision in terms of whether to go last year or not. And I think this year, I do think he goes, Lisa. But, again, things can change.
All right, I got a feeling he's going to go too, but you never know. We'll see, but I think he's going to move on. He's that run-grading, big offensive tackle on the right side that they look for in the NFL. Let's go back to the telephones and take a call from Birmingham. This is PJ. PJ, how are you?
How you doing, Roll Tide?
Hey, man, what's up?
Yeah, my question is, how much potential do y'all think Blake Sims have at quarterback?
Well, PJ, I think he's got a ton. And in fact, I love what they're doing with him, Rodney and PJ, in that they've got a little different package for him when he comes in. He's doing some of that zone read option. And I'm telling you something. I think he throws the football well enough. I think he's got a lot of potential at the quarterback position.
Well, the thing about it is, with the way they are, is he does things differently than what A.J. McCarron does. So he gives you different things you can do, different options, and his ability to run the ball. And he does, as Gary said, he is an adequate or better than adequate passer. I think, and as he continues to gain some experience, we're going to see him with he's a threat back there, because when defenses don't know what he's going to do, whether he's going to run or throw, I think certainly that adds another dimension to your offense, Gary. And, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago talking about the backup quarterback spot with Philip Ely. And Philip Ely's more of that same kind of quarterback in terms of, he's a pocket passer type. He's not going to really beat you with his legs. But, what Blake brings is the ability to do the things running the football, as well as throwing the football. So he gives you something different. And with that, I think he could develop more of a role in a game, say, for example, a close game. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a game that's a blowout, but you could bring him in and certainly give you a change of pace and give the defense something else to think about. And that's what it is. It's giving the defense something else to think about.
All right, good stuff. Thanks for the phone calls. We'll have more of your phone calls right after this. 205-348-9882. Phone lines are open. Call now. We'll talk to you more right after. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris, and we'll get to the phone calls in just a moment. TiderInsider.com. As always, you've got updates and some big recruiting news coming later in the week with Derrick Henry out of Yulee, Florida. Yep. You'll have it covered.
Yep, Derrick Henry, the great running back. We've talked about him before. 6'3", 240 from Yulee, Florida. Going to announce his decision 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern Time, but going to make that announcement prior to a big game that he's going to play on ESPNU, so you can catch him on ESPNU on Friday night.
And full coverage of his signing, or not his signing, his commitment ceremony on TiderInsider.com Friday afternoon. All right, let's go back to the phones and talk with William in Saginaw. William's a first-time caller. How are you?
Hey, great. My question is concerning Barrett Jones and his chances to win the Remington Award.
I think they're very good. I mean, he's the most high-profile center in the country by the fact that he played guard and then won the Outland Award at tackle. And Rodney, I'd have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure there's only been one player that's ever won the Remington and the Outland Award. He was a center. Of course, Barrett is a center this year, thus eligible for the Remington Award, but I think he's got an excellent chance.
Well, and I'll tell you what's, you mentioned the other player that's won it, and we were going to have to look it up. We weren't sure who it might be, but at the same time, it's very unlikely that whoever that was has played three different positions. You're talking about right guard, certainly as a freshman and a sophomore, redshirt freshman and a sophomore, then left tackle last season. I mean, and moving to center, and you talk about taking a guy from right guard, Gary, and moving him to left tackle, which is supposedly, might be the toughest position. But then if that's not, some people say center is. So, with his ability to do all those things, yeah, certainly he could very well win that award.
Yeah, and it would be an awesome end to one of the great careers, really, for any football player at any position or positions. in Crimson Tide football history. Hey, thanks for the phone calls and the emails. When we come back, it's prediction time. Find out what Rodney and I think will happen in Saturday night's game between Alabama and Ole Miss. That's next here on Tider Insider TV. It's prediction time through 4 games. Alabama's 4-0. We're also 4-0 in our picks, and actually our scores that we picked have been pretty close for the most part too. But Ole Miss is an SEC game, Rodney. It's the first home SEC game this late in the season. That's kind of unusual. So I know the football players will be excited about playing it. And your thoughts and your prediction on how it's going to go down?
Well, you know, when I look at Ole Miss, Gary, I be honest with you, I think they're one of the surprise teams. I know they haven't really beaten a top echelon program, but they've really turned it around between the years. I think Hugh Freeze has done an outstanding job building confidence. They're playing really hard. You look at the things that they've done. They're running the football. They're leading the SEC, 259 yards a game rushing. You know, all of those things, but Alabama's a lot better football team. I don't think Ole Miss can slow down Alabama running the football. I think Alabama can run it, I don't want to say at will, but certainly I think that they can set the tempo with the running attack and the balanced offense that Alabama has. I predict Alabama 38-14. That's probably a little bit conservative.
Well, Rod, you know, a couple of weeks ago I thought Arkansas would play Alabama a little tougher than they did. Of course, at the time, we weren't exactly sure what would happen with Tyler Wilson. But I've watched this Alabama team closely. Basically, every game they played, as I mentioned earlier, they've had wrapped up at halftime. They beat Ole Miss last year 52-7 in Oxford. It could have been worse. And I think they're going to be hyped, as I said, to play their first SEC home game. I think the Rebels have some athletes, may hang around for a while. But if Texas can hang 66 on them, Bama can get 50. I like Bama 52-10. I like the Tide to roll over the Rebels on Saturday night at Bryant-Denny Stadium to move to 5-0. Hey, that's going to do it for the program. We're headed out to Southland Restaurant in Cottondale. Great place to have dinner. Come and join us. You'll love that salad bar. For Rodney, I'm Gary. Thanks for watching. See you next week on Tider Insider TV.